Have you ever thought how a single, seemingly insignificant detail can shatter an entire life? For Vivian, that truth revealed itself on a quiet Tuesday night in the sterile loneliness of a Chicago hotel room. The digital clock on the nightstand glowed 11:30 p.m. when her laptop chimed with an incoming video call. On the screen, her husband's name appeared, Andrew. Instinctively, she smiled. After 3 days apart, hearing his voice was exactly what she needed to fight the weight of the trip. She brushed her long brown hair over her shoulders, adjusted the emerald earrings he had given her for their last anniversary, and clicked to answer. The screen lit up with Andrew's face, blue eyes warm and familiar, dark hair slightly tousled, and that smile that for nearly a decade had made her feel safe. "Hey, love," he said, his voice carrying that casual warmth that always seemed to cut through the distance. They spoke about her conference, about the Henderson account she had finally closed, about his parents and the dinner they had enjoyed over the weekend. Patricia had raved about the tiramisu, Andrew said, chuckling as if it were a simple, innocent family anecdote. It should have been comforting, and yet something in his demeanor wasn't quite right. He kept glancing away from the screen, fidgeting with his hair more than usual, his tone a little too hurried, a little too careful. Then it happened. Mid-sentence, Andrew froze and said he'd heard something downstairs. In a rush, he stood up. The laptop camera tilted wildly, showing the ceiling first, then a glimpse of their bedroom. That fleeting moment should have meant nothing, but Vivian's breath caught in her throat. There, on her side of the bed, the side she had always claimed, the side that was unmistakably hers, sat a small rectangle of color that didn't belong. A bright red phone. It wasn't hers. It had never been in their house before. Its crimson glow against the white sheets was so out of place it might as well have been a flare, signaling danger directly into her chest. Her pulse raced. Every instinct screamed betrayal. But 8 years of marriage had taught her that direct confrontation would only lead to Andrew's defensiveness, excuses, evasions. If there was a truth to uncover, it would not come by shouting at a glowing screen in a Chicago hotel room. She steadied her breathing, forcing her voice into calmness when he returned and muttered something about the neighbor's cat knocking over trash cans. They didn't even have trash cans, only a communal dumpster in the alley, but she pretended to accept the lie. For the next few minutes, she nodded at his words, her smile practiced, her heart icy. When the call ended, Vivian sat motionless, her eyes locked on the blank laptop screen. That red phone burned in her mind. She reached for her own cell, opened the airline's website, and quietly changed her ticket to the earliest morning flight. Tomorrow she would be home before noon, and this time, Andrew wouldn't see her coming.
Vivian barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw it again, that crimson phone glowing like a warning light against the sheets of her bed. Not their bed anymore, she thought bitterly. Someone else had been there, someone careless enough to leave behind evidence so brazen it felt almost intentional. At 4:30 a.m., her alarm went off. She rose without hesitation, packed her suitcase with mechanical precision, and checked out of the hotel. The early flight back to her city was uneventful, but her mind never stopped racing. By the time the plane landed, she had already mapped out every step of her plan. Instead of heading home directly, Vivian instructed her taxi driver to take her across town to Patricia and Richard's house. Her in-laws had always been her true family, more than her distant parents had ever been. They loved her like a daughter, and now she needed them more than ever. When Patricia opened the door, still in her robe, surprise flashed across her face. "Vivian, sweetheart, you didn't tell us you'd be home today. I wanted it to be a surprise for all of us." Minutes later, with coffee steaming on the kitchen table, Vivian revealed only half the truth. "The conference ended early. I thought it would be fun to surprise Andrew at the townhouse this afternoon. Maybe you and Richard could come with me. We'll catch him completely off guard." Patricia clasped her hands together, delighted. "He'll be over the moon. He misses you terribly, you know." Vivian didn't correct her. Richard, however, studied her carefully. His silver eyebrows drew together as if he sensed something deeper. Still, he agreed without hesitation. "If this is what you want, we're in." By noon, the three of them were standing at the townhouse door. Vivian's heart pounded, but her face betrayed nothing. She held up her phone as though preparing to film Andrew's surprise, though she hadn't pressed record. It was all theater, carefully orchestrated. She turned the key in the lock. The door opened without a sound. Andrew had always been obsessive about fixing squeaky hinges. Ironic, she thought, that his perfectionism would now betray him. Inside, the house was quiet. Too quiet. No television, no music, no clinking dishes in the kitchen. Only the faint trickle of water upstairs. The shower. Vivian's pulse quickened. Patricia's face lit up with excitement, whispering, "He'll be so surprised." Richard glanced at the table near the entryway. Andrew's wallet and keys lay there, but beside them sat a sleek leather purse that didn't belong to Vivian. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Vivian met his eyes and gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Together, they began climbing the stairs. Each step seemed to echo louder than the last, carrying them toward the inevitable. The laughter of a woman drifted down the hallway, mingling with Andrew's familiar chuckle. Patricia froze, horror dawning across her face. Vivian pressed her finger to her lips. No words, only silence. The truth was waiting just behind the master bedroom door.
The bedroom door was half open, a sliver of steam curling into the hallway. Vivian's pulse thudded in her ears, but her steps remained steady. With Patricia and Richard behind her, she pushed the door open in one swift, silent motion. The scene inside confirmed every suspicion. The bed was unmade, sheets tangled, 2 empty wine glasses perched on the nightstand, and on her dresser, mocking her, was that same red phone. The shower clicked off. For a moment there was silence, then the bathroom door creaked open. Andrew emerged with nothing but a towel wrapped around his waist, water dripping from his dark hair. Behind him came a woman, younger, blonde, wrapped in Vivian's plush white bathrobe, the one Patricia had given her for Christmas. Andrew froze, color draining from his face. The woman bumped into him, laughing, until she noticed the audience staring from the doorway. Her smile vanished. "What's wrong, babe?" she asked, clutching the robe tighter. Vivian stepped into the room, voice like ice. "I believe the question is, what's wrong with you, Andrew?" His mouth opened and closed, words stammering uselessly. "Vivian, you weren't supposed to be home," she cut in, clearly. The blonde woman took a step back. "I should go," she murmured, but Vivian's gaze pinned her. "Julia, isn't it? Julia Thornton. Don't worry about the robe. You can keep it. I won't be needing it anymore." The mistress flushed, caught like a deer in headlights. "He told me you were separated. He said the divorce was already happening." Patricia gasped. Richard's jaw hardened. Vivian's laugh was sharp, humorless. "Divorce. That's fascinating, Andrew, because last night we made plans for the weekend. But please, do go on." Andrew ran a desperate hand through his hair. "Viv, I can explain." "Don't call me that," Vivian snapped. "You lost the right to shorten my name when you brought another woman into my home." Patricia's voice, usually gentle, sliced through the tension. "Andrew James Whitman, what have you done?" Her son looked at her, pleading, but found no refuge. Richard's voice was deeper, colder than Vivian had ever heard. "You've disgraced yourself, you've disgraced your wife, and you've disgraced us." Julia scrambled into her clothes, gathering them in trembling hands, her face pale. "I didn't know," she repeated weakly, then fled the room. The slam of the front door below left only silence in her wake. Vivian turned back to Andrew, who now looked small, cornered, pathetic. "How long?" she asked simply. His voice cracked. 6 months." Patricia covered her mouth, tears spilling. Richard shook his head in disbelief. Vivian's spine straightened. The icy composure in her eyes told Andrew there was no path back. "You thought the red phone was a secret, but it was your confession."
For a moment, no one moved. The weight of Andrew's admission, 6 months, hung in the air like a thundercloud ready to burst. Patricia sank into the edge of the bed, her hands trembling in her lap, as if her son had just confessed to a crime far greater than infidelity. Richard stood tall, his face stone, his silence more damning than any raised voice. Vivian, however, did not crumble. She straightened her shoulders, scanning the wreckage of the room, the rumpled sheets, the half-empty wine glasses, the unfamiliar perfume clinging to the air. It was a battlefield, and she had already decided who would leave to feed it. "Pack a bag," she said coldly, tossing a small suitcase onto the bed. Andrew blinked. "What?" "You heard me. 30 minutes. Whatever you need goes in that bag. After that, the locks change." "You can't be serious," he sputtered. "This is my house, too." Vivian's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Actually, it isn't. The deed is in my name, remember? You insisted we do it that way for tax purposes. Your cleverness just became your eviction notice." Patricia's head shot up, eyes wide. Richard's mouth pressed into a grim line. Andrew's face paled. "Vivian, please, we can work through this. Couples do it all the time." Vivian's laugh was sharp, hollow. "Work through this? You brought her into our bed. You paraded her through my home. You don't love me. You love the thrill of lying and getting away with it." He reached toward her, desperation creeping into his features. "I do love you." She raised her hand, stopping him in his tracks. "Don't say that. Love doesn't look like betrayal." Patricia stood now, her voice breaking but firm. "You're not coming to our house, Andrew. Don't even ask. We raised you better than this." Andrew spun, disbelief in his eyes. "Mom, no!" she shouted, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You broke something that can't be fixed." Richard's voice followed, steady and cold. "Get dressed. Leave with dignity, if you still have any left." Andrew's chest heaved, his jaw clenching as he realized no one, neither his wife nor his parents, would shield him. He shoved clothes into the suitcase, muttering curses under his breath. The sound of zippers and hangers clattered through the silence like gunfire. Vivian stood in the doorway, her arms crossed, watching without flinching. Each shirt he tossed into the bag was another thread severed, another piece of his presence being cut from her life. When at last he slammed the suitcase shut, he turned on her. "You'll regret this," he hissed. Vivian's eyes met his, calm and unyielding. "No, Andrew, I'll regret staying." Richard opened the door wide. "Out." Andrew hesitated, but the steel in his father's voice left no room for argument. He dragged the suitcase past them, down the stairs, and out the door. The slam echoed through the house like the closing of a chapter. Vivian exhaled slowly, her hands finally trembling now that the battle was won. Patricia slipped an arm around her shoulders. "You're not alone," she whispered. For the first time since seeing the red phone, Vivian believed her.
The silence after Andrew's departure felt heavy, almost sacred. For the first time in 8 years, Vivian stood in her home without him. The air carried no laughter, no excuses, No lingering charm to mask his betrayals. Just quiet. She breathed it in like oxygen. Downstairs, Patricia and Richard lingered in the living room, still processing the shock. Richard paced, muttering about shame and dishonor. Patricia dabbed her eyes with a tissue, whispering apologies, as though she had personally failed Vivian. But Vivian wasn't interested in apologies. She was already thinking 3 steps ahead. "Tomorrow," she said firmly, "the locks change." Richard stopped pacing. Tonight would be better. He wasn't wrong, so she grabbed her phone and called an emergency locksmith. Within an hour, every keyhole gleamed with a new mechanism. When the locksmith handed her the fresh set of keys, Vivian felt the tiniest spark of triumph. Back inside, she sat at the kitchen island, pulling out her laptop. Her fingers moved with icy precision. First, she logged into the bank accounts. Joint checking, frozen. Credit cards, suspended. Savings, transferred to an account in her name only. Andrew had always hated dealing with money, leaving everything to her. That negligence was now her shield. When Patricia placed a mug of tea in front of her, she barely looked up. "He'll be calling. He'll be furious." Vivian's lips curved in a faint smile. "Let him. Anger doesn't open doors that no longer belong to him." By the time midnight rolled around, she had canceled his access to utilities, streaming services, even the gym membership. One by one, she severed the ties, reducing his presence to shadows. The home, once shared, was becoming hers alone. She moved deliberately through the house, gathering his belongings, his college baseball photo, his record player, his favorite coffee mug. She packed them into a box and wrote his name in bold letters across the top. Tomorrow, she would drop it at his office. No confrontation, no argument, just finality. Upstairs, she stripped the bed of its sheets and linens, tossing them into the laundry bin with more force than necessary. As fresh covers stretched across the mattress, she felt like she was stitching a wound shut, a temporary bandage, but a necessary one. When at last she sank into bed, exhaustion pressed against her bones, yet her mind remained sharp, calculating. Divorce lawyers, asset division, freedom. She wasn't broken, she was planning. Her phone buzzed with a new message, Andrew. She didn't open it. She blocked the number instead, letting his desperation vanish into silence. Lying back against the pillows, Vivian exhaled. Tonight wasn't the end. It was the beginning. For the first time since that red phone had seared into her vision, she felt control returning, not as a fragile hope, but as a weapon sharpened by betrayal. Tomorrow, the war would continue, but tonight, she had already won the first battle. Morning sunlight spilled across the kitchen table as Vivian sat with her coffee, laptop open, scanning through names of divorce attorneys. Each bio was another promise of strategy, another weapon she could wield. Her cursor paused over one, Meredith Barnes, specialist in high-conflict divorces. The tagline on the website read, "Clarity through chaos." It felt like fate. Within an hour, she had an appointment scheduled, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. sharp. Patricia called just as Vivian closed her laptop. "Sweetheart," her mother-in-law's voice was soft, tentative. "Andrew came by." Vivian's jaw clenched. "Already?" He looked lost. He asked to come in, said he just needed to explain, but Richard told him no, we're not sheltering him. Patricia hesitated, then added, "He said you froze the accounts. He painted you as cruel, vindictive." A bitter laugh escaped Vivian. "Of course he did. That's Andrew, always the victim of his own decisions." "Vivian," Patricia whispered, "we believe you. We saw the truth with our own eyes." The words warmed her, a fragile comfort in the middle of betrayal. Still, she could imagine Andrew's performance. Tears ready at command, charm sharpened into pity, trying to twist his parents' loyalty back into his hands. That evening, her prediction came true. Andrew's number lit up her phone again, this time leaving a voicemail. His tone was carefully crafted, contrite, desperate, almost theatrical. "Viv, please, don't do this. We've built 8 years together. Julia means nothing. It was a mistake. I was weak. Don't let anger destroy everything." She deleted the message without a second thought. Instead, she spent the night gathering evidence, screenshots of the red phone from their call, records of his absences, even credit card charges she hadn't noticed before. Every receipt became a stone in the foundation of her case. The next morning, she walked into Meredith Barnes's office, head high, emerald earrings glinting beneath the fluorescent lights. Meredith greeted her with a firm handshake, eyes sharp behind stylish glasses. "Tell me everything," she said. And Vivian did. From the phone on the bed to the confrontation, from Andrew's suitcase to Patricia's tears. She spared no detail. When she finished, Meredith leaned back, lips pressed together. "You have a strong case. Infidelity, financial negligence, a prenup with a morality clause. He won't win. We'll make sure of it." For the first time since the betrayal, Vivian felt her spine lighten, as though she wasn't carrying the weight alone anymore. When she left the office, her phone buzzed again. This time it was Patricia. She tried again, showed up at the house, begging. Richard shut the door in his face. "Vivian, he's unraveling." Vivian stopped on the sidewalk, sunlight spilling across her face. "Let him unravel," she said. "I'm not responsible for holding him together anymore." She slipped her phone back in her purse, straightened her shoulders, and walked on. The war had moved into the courtroom, and she was ready.
The doorbell rang just past noon, echoing through the quiet townhouse. Vivian froze, spatula still in hand from the omelet she was cooking. Through the peephole, she saw him, Andrew, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, suitcase abandoned on the porch like a stray dog. She considered ignoring him, but the thought of him pounding on the door, making a scene in broad daylight, forced her hand. She opened the door only a crack. "What do you want, Andrew?" "Viv, please." His voice cracked, rehearsed desperation dripping from every syllable. "I've been sleeping in my car. You froze everything. I can't get a hotel. Just let me in to talk." "No." Her answer was sharp, unflinching. "Say what you need to say from there." He raked a hand through his disheveled hair. "I know I messed up, but everyone deserves a second chance. 10 years together, 8 married. You can't just throw that away." Vivian's laugh was low, bitter. "You threw it away the moment you let another woman wear my robe in our bed." He flinched, but pressed forward. "I was going to end it. Julia meant nothing. God, Viv, I was weak." Her eyes narrowed. "Weak? Weakness is forgetting an anniversary. Weakness is lying about working late. What you did was deliberate. It was deceit every single day for 6 months." Andrew's jaw tightened, frustration breaking through his mask of remorse. "You're overreacting. People recover from affairs. We can go to counseling, take a break, whatever it takes." "No, Andrew." Her voice carried a finality that chilled him. "I'm not interested in recovery. I'm interested in freedom." He shifted tactics instantly. "Is this about my parents? Did they poison you against me? They've always treated you like their daughter and made me the villain." Vivian stepped closer, eyes blazing. "Don't you dare! They saw the truth. You showed them yourself. You didn't just betray me, you humiliated them." His face twisted, rage spilling over the edges of his calm facade. "So that's it. You'll take the house, the money, my parents, everything?" Vivian opened the door wider, just enough to meet him face to face. No, Andrew, you lost everything the moment you thought you could have both lives without consequence. I'm simply collecting what's mine. He stared at her, chest rising and falling, searching for the woman who had once adored him. But all he found was steel. "This isn't over," he hissed, his voice low and venomous. "You can't erase me." She raised her hand slowly and closed the door in his face. The deadbolt clicked like a gavel, sealing his fate. From the window, she watched him linger, then storm back to his car. Tires screeched as he sped down the street. Vivian pressed her palms against the cool wood of the door, breathing deeply. The confrontation had shaken her, but it hadn't broken her. He was unraveling. She was rebuilding. And the balance of power had shifted for good. For weeks, Vivian lived like a woman possessed. Not broken, not timid, but purposeful. Each day she cut another cord binding her to Andrew. The locks had been changed, the accounts divided, the lawyer engaged. What remained was herself, stripped bare of illusions and sharpened by betrayal. At work, colleagues noticed the shift immediately. She threw herself into projects with an intensity that surprised even her. The Henderson account she had closed in Chicago was just the beginning. Within a month, she secured 2 new contracts, her name whispered in boardrooms with respect. Her boss pulled her aside one Friday. "Vivian, you've got momentum. I'm recommending you for promotion next quarter." She thanked him, but inside she already knew. Success was no longer about proving herself to Andrew or anyone else. It was about claiming the life she should have had all along. Patricia and Richard remained steady constants, their presence anchoring her through late nights and restless mornings. They invited her for Sunday dinners, filling the void Andrew had left with warmth and belonging. Patricia often brought soup or fresh bread to her doorstep, insisting she eat properly. Richard helped her review the mortgage documents, guiding her through refinancing so the house became hers alone. One evening, as they sat around Patricia's table, Richard raised his glass. "To Vivian, the strongest person in this family." Vivian nearly cried at the word family. The betrayal had cost her a husband, but it had given her something far deeper. Unconditional loyalty from people who chose her, even when blood ties should have bound him to him. At night, though solitude pressed in, the bed felt too wide. The silence of the townhouse echoed louder than Andrew's absence ever had. To fight it, she began filling the spaces with new things, painting one wall a bold teal Andrew would have hated, replacing his books with her own, ordering pizza with toppings he had always vetoed. Each small rebellion became an act of reclamation. But it wasn't just rebellion, it was renewal. One Saturday morning, scrolling through her laptop, she caught herself pausing on a tab she hadn't touched in years. Travel, Spain, Barcelona, Madrid, Sevilla. Photos of plazas glowing in golden light, plates of paella steaming, dancers mid-flamenco. She had dreamed of it once, but Andrew had always insisted on tropical resorts, lazy beaches, where everything was predictable. For the first time, Vivian imagined going alone, or not alone, free. That afternoon, she stopped by a bookstore and bought a travel guide, her fingers lingering on glossy pages as if touching her future. The cashier asked, "Planning a trip?" "Eventually," she said with a smile. Driving home, windows down, wind tangling her hair, Vivian felt it, the spark she thought betrayal had stolen forever. Hope. Andrew might rage, he might plot, beg, or curse her name. But none of it mattered anymore. She was no longer his wife, no longer his captive. She was herself again, stronger, sharper, and rising.
The final decree came on a bright July afternoon. Vivian sat in Meredith Barnes's office, pen in hand, the divorce papers spread neatly before her. She read each line carefully, though she already knew the terms by heart. Andrew would keep his car, his personal belongings, a small settlement she had insisted on including, less for him, more to prove to herself she wasn't motivated by revenge. She, meanwhile, kept the house, her accounts, her freedom. When she signed the last page, Meredith leaned forward, smiling. "Congratulations, you're officially divorced." Vivian exhaled, a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Single. The word stung for a heartbeat, then warmed her like sunlight through glass. She left the office with her head high, emerald earrings catching the light, feeling lighter than she had in years. Patricia and Richard were waiting in their garden, lunch set on delicate china. Patricia kissed her cheek, whispering, "You look radiant, darling." Richard poured wine, raising his glass, to endings that are really beginnings. Vivian felt tears threaten, but this time they were sweet, not bitter. Weeks passed. She painted more rooms, rearranged furniture, filled the house with pieces that reflected her, not Andrew. She traveled briefly to Spain, sending postcards to Patricia and Richard. The trip became her rebirth. Standing in plazas under the hot sun, tasting food Andrew would have dismissed, dancing in streets filled with music. She returned home different, bolder, freer, certain of who she was. And with freedom came another dream, one she had shelved for years because Andrew always found excuses. Adoption. The process was grueling, forms, interviews, endless waiting. But Vivian met it with the same discipline that had carried her through Betrayal. When the day came, a social worker introduced her to a small girl with dark curls and wary eyes. Charlotte, 5 years old. Shy at first, then smiling when Vivian offered her a stuffed elephant. The connection was instant, almost startling. By the end of their second visit, Charlotte whispered, "Can I call you Mommy?" Vivian's chest tightened with joy. "Yes, sweetheart. Yes, you can." When Charlotte finally moved in, the townhouse transformed. Giggles echoed down hallways that once carried silence. Toys filled corners once occupied by Andrew's belongings. Vivian found herself laughing more, cooking more, rediscovering life through the eyes of a child who needed love as much as she had to give it. Patricia and Richard embraced the role of grandparents without hesitation. They spoiled Charlotte with books, cookies, and stories, their hearts healing as much as Vivian's. On a warm evening, watching Charlotte chase fireflies in their backyard, Patricia leaned towards Vivian. "She's our granddaughter now. Blood doesn't matter. Love does." Vivian swallowed a lump in her throat, eyes glistening. "Thank you. For choosing me. For choosing her." Richard put an arm around her. "We didn't choose, Vivian. Family chose us." In that moment, Vivian understood. The red phone that had shattered her world had also cleared the way for this, her true family, her true life. 1 year later, sunlight streamed through the remodeled townhouse. The walls were painted soft blue, windows expanded to flood every corner with warmth. Vivian stood in the kitchen arranging strawberries atop a cake, the scent of vanilla and sugar filling the air. It was Charlotte's welcome party anniversary, 12 months since a shy 5-year-old had walked through the door and turned a house of grief into a home of laughter. "Are the strawberries straight enough?" Vivian asked, glancing over her shoulder. "They're perfect," Patricia said, arranging flowers in a vase. Richard chuckled from the patio, where he and Charlotte was setting up a picnic table. "That child doesn't care about straight strawberries. She just wants to eat them." Vivian smiled, her heart swelling. It wasn't long ago that silence haunted these rooms. Now they pulsed with life. Charlotte's giggles, Patricia's humming, Richard's booming laugh. The family Andrew had shattered had been rebuilt. Stronger, chosen, unstoppable. Guests trickled in. Neighbors, colleagues, even Vivian's parents, finally making an effort to reconnect. Charlotte darted between them, showing off her new locket, a silver heirloom Patricia had given her. "Look, Mommy! Mommy's picture is inside," she announced proudly. Vivian's throat tightened at the sound of Mommy, still magical every time. Later, after cake and games, Patricia drew Vivian aside. Her hands trembled slightly as she passed her an envelope. "Richard and I updated our will," she said softly. Vivian frowned, confused. Opening the document, her breath caught. "You've named me and Charlotte your heirs?" Richard's voice was steady, eyes glistening. "We love our son. But blood alone doesn't make a family. You and Charlotte are our legacy now." Tears blurred Vivian's vision. "I'm not your daughter by birth." "You became our daughter the day you walked into our lives," Patricia whispered, pulling her into a fierce embrace. Vivian clutched the papers, overcome. Betrayal had once stripped her of everything, yet here she stood, not abandoned, but adopted by love itself. That night, after guests left and Charlotte was tucked into bed with her stuffed elephant, Vivian stepped onto the patio. The summer air was warm, the sky painted in streaks of pink and gold. Patricia and Richard sat beside her, glasses of wine in hand. "To new beginnings," Richard toasted. "To family," Patricia added. Vivian raised her glass, voice steady. "To the Red Foon, the moment that ended one life but gave me another." They clinked glasses, laughter mingling with the distant hum of crickets. Later, alone in her room, Vivian pulled out the letter journal Andrew had once mailed from Seattle. She opened to a blank page, pen poised. At the top she wrote, "Today I am home." She paused, listening to Charlotte's soft breathing through the walls, the steady comfort of her in-laws just a street away. She realized she was no longer defined by betrayal or divorce or loss. She was defined by what she had built: resilience, courage, and love stronger than blood. For the first time in her life, Vivian felt complete, and this time, nothing could take it away.